to the entertainer talking sports.
What is going on, baseball fans? Back at it with another New York Mets video. I know, 2 Mets videos in one day. What is going on? Obviously, usually I have a lot of football content, but a huge piece of news in the New York Mets world just came out that Fred and Jeff Wilpon are in strong negotiations of selling the New York Mets. And Steve Cohen would take over 80% of the team's ownership. Cohen right now is part owner of the New York Mets. Fred and Jeff Wilpon, whose nicknames are Fred and Jeff Coupon, have been hated owners by the New York Mets for years. Now, the Mets, to be fair, have started to spend a little bit more in recent years, but they continue to be basically a mid to small market team in a large market, and it is incredibly frustrating over the years that the New York Mets may have been a piece, maybe 2 pieces away, and the team would not go out and spend. Now, it's not all their fault. Of course, they were mixed up in the whole Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme scandal, and that certainly hurt them, which is where they had to sell off some of the ownership to remain afloat, and they've started, I guess, to get back some of their wealth. But now talks have come out that they are in talks of selling the baseball team. Now, to my understanding, it would take about 5 years for it to go to completely shift over to Cohen. But nevertheless, I know a lot of Mets fans are going to be incredibly excited about the news because at the end of the day, the Mets' biggest problem over the years, yes, they've had horrible luck, but it's been their owners. To sit back and watch the Yankees spend and spend and spend, Brian Cashman could go out there and he can make a free agent signing, and if it doesn't work, he says, okay, I have the free reign to go in and bring somebody else to cover up my mistake. If the Mets make a mistake like Jason Bay, it sets the franchise back for years. And really, the last long-term contract that the Mets signed, to my recollection, I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years, is Carlos Beltran. I think Bay might have been 4 years. They haven't been able to sign huge contracts, long extended contracts because they've been handicapped because of their owners. Yes, the payroll is pretty high up there. I think I just did a video. It was about $175 million. But most of those contracts are short-term deals. Yes, I know they signed DeGrom last year because they were pressured into doing that. But the Mets have not been what they were before, the whole Ponzi scheme thing, when they were going out there and spending money to stay in contention. They bring in a Mike Piazza. They bring in a Carlos Delgado, a Carlos Beltran, Pedro Martinez to try and compete. And since those days, the fan base has been incredibly depressed due to the lack of ownership. It's the same thing with the Knicks, and Giants fans are starting to get upset with their owners as well. But of course, I know Mets fans will be incredibly excited about this because you have to figure with the new owner, when this does go into effect, if it does, fingers crossed, he's going to try to make the fan base happy, especially as he starts on. But let's jump into some of these quotes from my loved New York Mets. Here's the first one. The owners of the New York Mets are in talks to sell up to 80% of the Major League Baseball team to billionaire Steve Cohen, who is already an investor in the club, according to a person familiar with the matter. So I assume Cohen was one of the guys that got part ownership, when the whole Madoff thing went down. The transaction would value the team at $2.6 billion, said the person who asked not to be identified because the talks are private. The Mets confirmed the talks in a statement. And then there was this. Fred Wilpon, the team's principal owner, will remain in his current role for at least 5 years, at which time Cohen will have a path to controlling the franchise, said the person. Jeff Wilpon, his son, will remain as the team's chief operating officer for the 5-year period, the person said. Cohen, whose net worth is $9.2 billion, according to Bloomberg Billionaires Index, will remain as chief executive of .72 Asset Management, the person said. He didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. Now, none of this is official, but the fact that this is leaking out now all over Twitter, all over the news, it seems to at least be likely. And if it is, Met fans, we finally get the monkey off our back and get rid of those horrible owners. Mets fans have been calling for these guys to sell the team for years. I am incredibly excited if this happens because maybe we could be a big market team in a city that charges you $100 to go to a baseball game. I go to Philadelphia, I go to a game for a third of the price. If you're going to charge top price tickets and charge me $8 for a hot dog and $10 for a beer, I want a product that's worth that $10 beer. And we haven't had it for quite some time. The Mets have been inconsistent in large part due to the fact of their owners. And maybe the Mets long-term will be starting to turn a corner. Listen, I'm 34 years old. I was born in 1985. I don't count the 86 championship. I was in diapers. I want to see a championship before I die. And maybe we'll get to see a couple if this owner operates as if this is a New York franchise. We're going to have to wait and see, but I thought this was pretty exciting news. As always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.